Hi there, in today's video I'm going to show you how to make eyes pop in Photoshop. So I've edited this portrait completely, but I have not touched the eyes at all. It's got a colour overlay over the whole thing, but the eyes themselves have not been touched. So let's just see what a difference it makes when I put all the elements on. You can see I've added lashes, I've brightened the whites, I've added some colour. And what we'll do is we'll give it a little zoom in and I'll just go through these layers one by one for you. So the lashes already make a huge difference. They just frame the eye a little bit, and my eyelashes aren't very long and I didn't have false ones, so they just give it a really nice dramatic look. Then I've got a curves layer which brightens the whites, but I also run it through the iris a little bit just to lighten that up. So that's what that does. I've got another curves layer which darkens the rim and along the top lash line. And then finally we have a colour layer. This is two parts. The first layer just sort of brings out a little bit more of a deeper colour all around. And then the second layer is just around the centre of the pupil. You'll find a lot of people's eyes have got a slightly different colour around the centre. And I think all in all, it gives a lot of impact. So I'm going to delete these layers and we're going to start from scratch. We're going to start with the eyelashes. Now if you're playing along with this, you're going to need to go and install your eyelashes. The link is in the description box down below, but you're going to press B for brush tool. That's your shortcut, or click on the menu. Go to your brushes panel here. Now mine have already got it loaded, so this is what you'll see if you don't have them loaded. These are the standard Photoshop brushes. So you're going to click on the cog, go to load brushes and browse to wherever you've saved them. Double click on the brush and they will install right at the bottom for you. Easy peasy. So we're going to choose a less dense eyelash for the bottom eyelashes. So I'm going to pick this one and I'm going to create a new layer. So we can either click the new layer icon down the bottom, or you can use the shortcut Control Shift N. We're going to call this layer bottom left lashes. And as you can see, I have my brush. I can size it however big or small I want. Now if I was super fancy and had lots of patience, I could go into my brush menu and I could change the angle and the size until I got it just right. But I find you've got far more control if you just make a new layer for each eyelash, so 4 layers all in all, and then you can warp them and manipulate them individually. So I'm going to, that's about the right size, more or less. I'm just using my square bracket keys to change the size. And now I want to pick a colour that my eyelashes already are. Pick one of the darker areas, so I'm going to pick this colour here. And if you double click on your colour palette, you'll see that it's not actually pitch black, so it's going to look far more realistic. So I'm going to place my bottom eyelashes right there. They're still very dark, but we'll fix that in a moment. Now let's go back to my move tool so I can see. This seems to be in the right place, but the eyelashes over here seem to sink down a little bit. So I'm going to press Control T to transform, and I'm going to move this little circle, this little target in the middle, to the point where I don't want it to move, because I feel like it's in the right place over here. So that's my rotation point. I'm going to rotate that up, and I am pretty happy with that. So this eyelash here is a little bit long for me and I'd like to trim the edge off a couple. So I'm going to get my eraser tool, or you can press E on your menu. I seem to have my eyelash brush selected there. I must have been playing around earlier. So we're going to pick a nice soft brush and I'm going to use my square bracket keys to change the side. I am using my Wacom tablet here to make life easier. Now I'm going to take this whole eyelash out. And I'm just going to trim the ends off a few of these very long ones. because I do want a dramatic look, but I don't want it to be too over the top. Right, now I think they're a little bit dark still, so I'm going to bring the opacity down here to about 80%, and I think that looks far more natural. Control 0 to go back to fill the screen, and I think that looks great. So I'm going to create a new layer now. I'm going to use my shortcut Control Shift N, and that allows me to name it top left. Press enter, and there's my new layer. So for the top lashes, I'm going to go back to my brush tool. For the top lashes, I'm going to want a little bit more of a dense eyelash, and I'm going to go with this one because I think that this is top and bottom, top and bottom, top and bottom. That's how I see it anyway, because they're the way they're rotated. So these are going to be more or less the same density. So I'm on my new layer. That is pretty good size and position wise. I've got the same colour selected, and I'm just going to tick those on there. So Control T again to rotate and transform. I'm going to rotate it just slightly, and I'm going to bring it down because I want to get this corner. I like to get the outer corners right, and then the rest lines up. So I'm going to move my little target down to there again, and I'm just going to push that up and double click, and I think that's a pretty good match. So I'm going to E for my eraser tool again, and I'm just going to shave off some of the very long points, and I think I'm going to get rid of that one altogether. Now I don't mind top lashes being nice and long, and again they're slightly dark, so I'm going to bring that opacity down to about 80%. I'm going to speed this up now while I do the other eye. And as you can see, there are my eyelashes. If I hold on the Alt key and click on the eye of the background layer, it will take everything away except that layer. Already made a huge difference. I'm going to add these into a group. So I've selected my top eyelash. I'm going to shift click on my bottom eyelash, Control G, and that is now a group. Double click on the words to change the name, and now I've got my lashes on one layer. Now there's two ways to do this next bit, and I'm going to show you both. So this is the quick and easy way. You want to add a dodge and a burn layer. So Control Shift N brings up this little box. We want to change the color to grey, and we want to change the blend mode to overlay. You can then tick that, and it will just color the edge tab in so that you know that that's what you've done. So that's gone grey now, that's all that does. So one of these is my dodge layer and one is my burn. They're both going to be exactly the same. So I can press Control J, or I can right click, duplicate layer. Either way works. And this is my dodge and my burn. I'll name one D for dodge and B for burn. So if you don't know this already, the dodge tool, which is over here, shortcut O on the menu, the dodge tool makes things lighter and the burn tool makes things darker. Now I don't remember dodge, but if you burn something, if you burn a bit of paper, it goes black. So that's how I remember that. We're going to start with the dodge tool. So we want to whiten the eyes. So the simplest way to do that is to make sure you're on your dodge layer. I've got my dodge tool selected. You want a soft brush, so you want to make sure your hardness is on 0. And we've got exposure 50% here. That's quite a lot. I'm going to change that down to about 20%. And we're just going to brush the eye, and as you can see, it will slowly start to lighten. I would recommend using a Wacom tablet for this, although you can do it with a mouse, just takes a little bit more patience. So that's made a huge difference. And then what we can do is what I showed you before on my layers, is that I brightened this little bit of the eye as well. So just a few strokes around mostly the bottom, because your eyelid and your eyelashes will automatically shade the top of your eye. So you don't want it to be too all the way around. It's just going to look weird. So there you have it. That's made a huge difference, and that was pretty quick. So the burn tool is in the menu, so hold down, or you can press Shift and 0 to scroll through these options. Here's your burn tool. We're already on 9%. I think that's fine. So make sure we're on that layer, and it's a rather large brush. You want to go around. Most people have got a naturally darker circle here. Not everyone does, but you can darken it anyway. It just makes those eyes stand out a lot more. You can push your exposure up a little bit if you feel that it's taking too long. But I recommend anywhere between 9 and 15% is pretty good. If you do it too dark, it's just going to go all over the show. Give a little dot on the pupil as well, always helps. And then you want to make your brush a little bit bigger and just run over those top lashes. And that is our burn layer. There we go. If we take those off and pop them back on, it makes a huge difference. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is with a curves layer. So what you would do is you go down to this little icon at the bottom here and then go up to curves. Now first of all we want to do the lighten. So what I normally do is I put my cross right in the middle, push up a little bit to lighten the mid-tones, and then I want to bring those highlights really bright. So I want to take this point right in the corner and bring it down a little bit. Now that's made everything look weird, but if I press Control I on my adjustment layer, it's going to make that mask black. And remember, everything black is hidden and everything white is visible. So I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to get off my eyelashes brush and pick a nice soft brush, and I'm going to make sure my foreground colour is white, and I'm going to paint where I want that to show. If I go a little bit too far, I can just press X, and as you can see, as I press X, it will change which is my foreground colour, and I can just brush out if I've gone a little bit too far. The beauty of this is if it's too strong, you can go back and adjust them. I think that's fine. But if you did find it was too strong, you can click on your curves layer and play around and make it lighter or brighter. I think I'm going to leave that exactly how it was. Right, so now I do exactly the same thing, but now we want to darken. So we're going to go back down to this icon, click on the curves layer, and this time we want to darken it. So we're going to click in the middle and bring the mid-tones down a little bit, and then we're going to take this far point in the black area, which is our shadows, and I'm just going to drag it to the right. Again, that's really strong. It's affected the whole image, so you want to press Control I on the mask, and that'll change it to black. So we're just inverting whatever's on the mask. And then same thing, we're going to use our brush, make sure we've got white selected, and I'm going to run over all those areas that are darkened before. Both ways work. I wouldn't recommend one over the other. Happen to use curves on the last one because I've got that set as an action, but dodge and burn is just as good. Right, so there's my curves layers. If you find something's a little bit too strong, just pop down your opacity or go back in and change the curves layer. So I'm pretty happy with that so far. Last but not least, we want to do the colour. So I'm going to start a new layer, Control Shift N, and we're going to call this colour. And then what we want to do is we want to select a colour from the eye already. So we're on our brush tool. If you hold the Alt key, it turns into an eyedropper and you can select a colour. Now as you can see, that's like a greeny grey colour. If you double click on that, what you want to do then is push that right up to this corner. Get a very tiny brush, zoom right in, and you just want to make flecks. Again, you might need a Wacom tablet for this. It would be very difficult to do with a mouse, but not impossible. And you just want to do it on the areas that you have already lightened with your curves or with your dodge layer. Right, now we're going to go up to Filter, Blur. We're going to put a Gaussian blur on it, and you want it to be quite soft where you can just about see that it's like little separate lines. It's not one big splurge of colour. Click OK, and then we're going to change the blending mode to Colour Dodge. That's a little bit bright right now, so we're going to add, just tone that down just a little bit. Then we're going to add another layer, Control-Shift-N. I'm going to call this Colour 2. And we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to try and pick a colour from right around the centre. So you're going to hold your Alt key and click again. Now it looks just like a darker grey, but as you can see it's much more yellow here. So I'm going to take that right up to this corner. And you can, if you want to, adjust it a little bit each way. I'm going to go slightly more down into the yellow. So again, with a small brush, we are going to colour little lines right around the pupil. And the same on this eye. We're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and this time we wanted a little bit less. We wanted a little bit more obvious. Okay, and we're going to go down and we're going to click on Colour Dodge. Again, that's a little bit bright, so we'll pop those down a little bit. Now you just need to play with your opacity until you are happy. And what you can also do, like I've got a very dark mark there. Ooh, the dark mark. You can just erase little bits as you see fit. So I'm just dotting around now just to break that up a little bit. And there you have it. I'm going to group those together. I'm going to click on my top one, hold Shift, click on the bottom one, Control G, puts them in a group. I can call that group Colour. And there you have it. The closer up and the more detailed your picture, you're going to want to blend that in a little bit more, so you might drop your opacity. But because this image is going to be viewed from this distance, you don't need to be quite so picky. It's not the sharpest image, it's very noisy, and I think for the style of the image, that works really well. I want vivid eyes, I want them to stand out like it's a painting looking through you. And that is how you enhance eyes in Photoshop. Thanks for watching.